Lots of nervous energy. Welcome to the last event of Women in Gaming Month, hosted by Hoard of Tales. We are going to be doing a panel on the LGBTQIA plus in TTRPGs, all of the acronyms, whatever. So I will start. I am Anya. I am the moderator of this panel. I am severely jet lagged because I just got home from the United States. And so don't mind me if I ramble. Let's see. I am a DM, a player. Oh geez, I do a lot of things. I just recently wrote a pseudo one-page TTRPG about pugs called The Grand Pug Adventure. It's on my itch.io, and it's really cute. You get to play pugs, and it's really fun. Let's see, I am pansexual. I also refer to myself as queer sometimes for simplicity's sake. And yeah, that's me. Let's do Natalie.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie. You can find me on most places on the internet with Ghost Candle, mainly Twitter. I post about art, which is a lot of focus in like D&D and tabletop character and fantasy. Done work with Hit Point Press and this like. But I'm also a performer and player. And I've also casually DM'd in my own private games. So lots of fun there, as well as once in a while dabbling and making my own stuff. And I have a Ko-Fi where I post weekly emotes, doing like different themes out of tabletop games. So this month I've been doing Gem Dragons. So that's been really cute and fun, as well as just commission work or anything else that comes up. It's a thing. I am a asexual individual. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm still kind of exploring the gender side of things, but through tabletop, I've really solidified my sexuality. And we'll get into that later, but that's me.
And then Chickadee.
I'm Chickadee, she, they. I am a variety streamer here on Twitch with a heavy focus on D&D and TTRPGs. You can find me doing like D&D chats, brainstorms, that kind of thing, and a little bit of video games. I also run a campaign once a month. And then you can find me on Twitter, mostly is where I hang out at. Oh, you can see it up there somewhere. And yeah, that's pretty much where I hang out most of the time. I hang out in a lot of Discords as well. So if you're in like, I don't know, D&D Discords, you can probably find me. And yeah, that's basically all I do. I got a YouTube too, working on putting some educational content out on there, but that's slow going right now because work and streaming is like a lot. But yeah, as far as my LGBTQIA flavor goes, I'm bisexual and a non-binary woman, which people get a little confused about, but I like that title, so I'm gonna stick with it.
Hey. And I forgot to say, because jet lag brain, you can find me on Twitter at LaLeonPhoto or TikTok and Instagram at la.leon.cosplay. And obviously here, LaLeon Cosplay, all one word. And yeah, and I'm she, her pronouns. So anyway, yes. So let's get started. And if anyone who's watching has any questions for us, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We have a list of questions that we already prepared, but we're happy to answer other questions too. So to start, how does your, as we say in the doc, flavor of LGBTQIA plus influence your choices in TTRPGs? This can be anywhere from character creation to world building to who you actually play with. So whoever wants to start.
Go ahead.
So I'll preface by saying my start in tabletop RPGs is pretty new. I only started really getting into it just a little over 2 years ago. And it started with me being brought into a group of all guys at a table. Very much they all identify as guys, straight men. So that was an interesting thing. But I was just excited to finally join a table. And seeing the shift between that and then a few months, I was like, I really want to try other tables. I still play with them. They're my guys. But I want to try other tables. And then I got into a streamed campaign called Elixia, which is a mix of men and women, different identities, different backgrounds and heritages. And I just love going there where just story is coming out a bit more, relationship within the table, like both player and character is coming out a bit more. Because with my first table, we all became friends and such, but there wasn't like in-depth character relationships. There wasn't that kind of character exploration until I started DMing for them. And I was running Humblewood, which is like a little animal-centric game, but I really pushed into the in-depth, like, hey, you have this relationship with a woman and she's tired of waiting on your ass, going off adventuring and shit. So we're having a discussion. And yeah, in terms of my own personal choices as a player, I've done like the full spectrum of she, her, he, him, they, them, as well as different sexualities from pansexual to just zero interest, like Ace Arrow. And in the beginning, and I'll pull one character specifically, it's my bard character, Vendus. And I was going to push him to being the stereotypical bard because I want to see what that stereotype was, that memeified, like, I'm going to have sex with everything. Like, this will be fine. You know, I'm starting to solidify I'm an asexual person. I can do this. And then it turns out, no, he has deep respect for, like, everybody that's very, into sex work and stuff. He supports them and, in fact, very much defends them.
That's awesome.
And he became kind of, no, these people working in this industry are awesome and they are a great resource of information and gotta respect that because information is everything.
Nice.
And yeah, just in which that became a theme where it's just like every character tends to have that asexual part of me in it a little bit. So, but they're still like, definitely gotta flirt a little. Gotta flirt a little. And that's where other tables is just like, yay, give it to me.
Yeah, so I'm just going to answer Spoonie's question really quick from the chat. They asked, what does table mean in the context of TTRPGs? So that's basically like in the physical concept, you're literally sitting around a table with a bunch of other players. And so here, like we could be at a table, the three of us together. It just means that we're all playing together, basically.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then Chickadee.
Yeah, so my like start to D&D was very similar, being that I've played with a bunch of dudes and then my second table was a bunch of dudes. Now obviously like great people, I'm still friends with a lot of them. Even the campaign on my channel is me with 3 dudes. Now they're like my best buddies and they're really good people. Up until the one shot through like the Women in Gaming this month, I actually hadn't played with women really. There was one that we had drop in one time. So my experience like adding LGBTQIA plus stuff to the table more comes through like me creating characters and then as a DM, like making sure that that diversity exists there. So at my first table, sorry, my second character, or actually my first character was actually a sex worker. My second character was a bearded female dwarf. And my third character was like a very androgynous woman. So like I've really tried to like instill that there. And that was part of me exploring that for myself because at that time like I was still using like she her pronouns and I didn't even really understand that I was exploring that at that time. It's kind of a revelation that I've had since then. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's like how those two things kind of come together. When it comes to choosing people at my table, I don't necessarily choose for that kind of diversity. For me, choosing people to like play with is about like feeling safe. So obviously, people in the LGBTQIA plus arena make me feel safer than other things. So they are likely to get like for me to like play with them, but it's not necessarily like you have to be queer for me to play with you. Not that I think anybody feels that way either. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
I think so. And I have to look at it because jet lag has me brain fogged right now. So For me personally, like my experience with TTRPGs goes back to freshman year of college, playing Firefly, and that was from the beginning, um, like a variety of genders and sexualities, because we were the nerd club, and the awkward people come together. So I've always played with women, and with non-binary people, and I think that my longest standing table that I was at, it was, I think that we played for a year or 2 years together, and we actually had them over to our house, and we did Sunday morning gaming and brunch, and it was fantastic. But that was actually all guys except for me, and I was not the only queer person at that table. And so even though it was all guys plus me, it was a different dynamic. It wasn't all straight guys. And so we kind of we really focused a lot on the role play, and I think maybe a number of us being queer definitely played into that. And yeah. And then recently, like since Women in Gaming Month last year, I have been kind of exploring more genders and sexualities in my characters. So like this last, I'm going to words, it's fine. So in Carnival of Beasts, I played a non-binary changeling named Nabe, and I absolutely adored them. Like I went in depth into their backstory, like so much detail for a one shot, but I just really felt this connection to them. And so I really loved creating their character and creating who they were in the world. So yeah.
It's always fun
that
how
answers that. Yeah.
it's always fun how like the one-shot ones end up like switching something in your brain. Like I had a one-shot recently, this month, where I made a very androgynous character, they them, and it's like I love the style, I love how they feel, I love being in them and being them. What does this mean to me? So it is always nice to see like building off what those connections with your own characters bring out in you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and like I think both finding things that feel like so much you that you weren't expecting, but also trying things out and being like, that is definitely not me as much as it's fun to play this character. Like I know it's like this is actually written like a character and it's not like a stand-in for me like some of my other characters would be.
For sure. Let's see. Our next question is, are there any instances you want to share that were particularly negative?
I don't think like anything in character, and this like is probably not even like I can't think of like a specific thing, but I can definitely say that there are certain tables that I've played at that I know I wouldn't be as comfortable exploring character like identities as I would be at other tables. Like my first table, like as much as I played like bearded female dwarf, I was very much like still a woman, still like and same thing with that androgynous character. Like I'm not even sure anybody picked up on the fact that I wasn't really playing like this femme woman, especially because like I present like pretty femme, and I think that a lot of people do this thing where they see the person playing the character and they put a lot of that person onto the character rather than paying attention to what you're saying about the character. Whereas like at the table I'm at now, it's like obviously I'm getting to explore things because I'm the DM, so I get to make whatever the heck NPC I want, but I also have a person at the table who's playing an AFAB non-binary character as a man. And so like it's really cool that he's getting to explore something so different. And he's even said to me, you know, like he's not used to using gender neutral terms and stuff, but he has to for this character that he's made. So it's like a really good thing for him too. I think that's a really good example for like other people who aren't a part of the community, that they can still explore those things too, and it doesn't make them queer or anything like that. Because I know that,
Yeah.
that seems to be like this weird thing, like, oh, like I'm a straight man, I can't do queer things. It's like, no, like you totally still can. It's a great thing to like try to understand that.
Yeah, the actor in me is just like, it's not you. I mean, it can be, but it's not you. It's the character, and you can separate those in your mind.
Yeah, I think as far as like a negative experience, like it's been more about being a woman at the table rather than a queer person at the table. So I can talk more to that as like a negative thing, but like my sexuality and at the time, like I was just like a woman. I wasn't a non-binary woman, so like it wasn't like an issue for me gender identity wise. And I don't even know that they knew I was bi, so that's like, it just never came up, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I've only. Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think my experience is very much mirrored to that, where my sexuality hasn't really come up or been touched on. And it's never been an issue, but at least at the all guys table that came in on as a fresh face, even if I made like a pure male character and they're described as very masculine and everything, and I'm playing that, they hear my voice or see my face. So like, okay, she is doing this, or this is her thing, and I'm like, he, him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend who one of her favorite characters that she plays is a guy. And sometimes when I run one shots with her in them, she'll bring him back into it, and we'll just change his level and everything to suit it. And I sometimes have to remind the other players, and this is all off stream, so all home games, but I'll have to remind them sometimes, Sully's a guy, he, him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we've definitely been
and
having that
it's
at our table too. Again, like I think because like some of the people playing at my table just aren't used to using like gender neutral terms and stuff. But it's been really cool to like watch them get better in the last like 6 sessions that we've been playing with. So I think it's been like a really good thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
still
that's part
those
of the
reminders
reason.
all the time.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I decided to make NABE non-binary, because I have non-binary friends, I have trans friends, I have plenty of people in my life who use they, them pronouns, but day to day, not quite as much. And so I really wanted to ingrain that in my brain as well, especially being part of the community, because I think that it's so important to have that vocabulary.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So tears in my eyes. Ugh.
Oh
On
no.
the flip side of that, I have been mostly awake for over 24 hours. Life is fine. So on the flip side of that question, are there any instances that you want to share that were particularly positive as well?
I think I did that by accident already.
Yeah.
Yes, I think like I'm on that too. That whole seeing people where initially they really struggle on that pronoun usage and trying to
Mhm.
separate that when coming to a character, and seeing they're much better now. Like as I mentioned, I had one of my first characters was my Drow Vendus, male, and a lot of my players struggled on referring to me as that character as he, him. And then now I'm playing a very flamboyant Triton that still uses he, they, or he, him. And now they're very comfortable referring to me as he, him while playing that character, which is delightful.
That's
'Cause I'm like,
awesome.
and I bare my chest, my hair flies, very Fabio. It's great.
I love it. Okay. Then what differences, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but what differences do you see in tables that are all LGBTQIA plus, mostly queer, mostly not, blah, 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 like the various formations, both from personal experience and from if you've watched actual plays, I'm sure that we all have.
Mhm.
So Natalie, do you want to start?
Sure. So yeah, touched on it a bit too earlier where, entering my first table with all guys, all straight white guys, they had like their role for hotness, their, little bits are like, really? At least for me it was
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Just rely on character description, and then if you mention they're tall and buff, they're hot automatically. There you go.
Okay.
But yeah, so once I started drifting to my next table, which was a mix of identities of LGBT and straight, there's definitely a development of more comfortable relationship building in that, where I saw the massive difference where my all guy table was very combat focused, and there was role play and some story development, but everything seemed to be more focused on that combat. And then when I flipped over to a mixed table and even playing recent one shots with all LGBTQ plus, there's a lot more focus of, okay, story is part of that relationship building, that interaction, and it becomes a little more deeper and meaningful, and then you feel safe exploring that with other folks of the same kind of communities, so you feel like you can get a little more in depth with it, a little more invulnerable, and you know that at the end of it, if there's still any emotions that are high, there's those safety tools, which I didn't learn until I started branching out into other tables, especially mixed tables. It was just something that never came up in the home game. So um, definitely that feeling of being able to be vulnerable and safe with my people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
definitely had that as well. Sorry,
No,
Chickadee.
go ahead.
Yeah, so like with all of the other games that I've done outside of Women in Gaming, both last year and this year, those games that we didn't really have those safety measures, and we also didn't really have those emotional connections as much as when I've played with Women in Gaming. So last year we were doing Glitter Hearts, and Philippa was the DM or GM. I'm not sure what's used in Glitter Hearts. And Lexi, Black Girl Magic, is that her Twitter account? So she played with us. And so she and I had a moment where our relationship broke. And like I was trying to help her and I messed up. And so we had to mend our relationship at the end of it. And it was very cathartic for me because I felt so safe with these other women, these other players. I felt that I could kind of bare myself a little bit, bare my soul. And I absolutely was crying with that, getting that emotional connection back and mending our characters' relationships. And then I was sobbing once we got off the stream, being like, oh, that was so good. But I never really had that with mixed tables or any of the other games that I had played before.
Yeah, so I haven't really played again like at a whole lot of mixed tables. For me, like you guys are talking about how like being like at a queer table, you find the role play and the like character connection is like easier to do. And I think that's really interesting, and it makes sense to me that it would be easier just because it like automatically feels like a safer space. But like what I connect that to for myself and my personal experience is just how close I feel to the people. So like the better friends I've been with people, whether they're straight men or not, and how comfortable I am like telling them about my identity and like talking about stuff like that, that role play comes out more. So my first table, I didn't really know them that well. They were like friends of friends, and they were also very much like they weren't bad people by any means. I wouldn't have been playing with them if they were, but they definitely
Yeah.
didn't come off as open. And then I moved on to a different table, where it was like my partner and like a bunch of his friends from school, and they just seemed more open to those things. One of them has a bi wife, so it was like, oh, you're obviously cool with that. So that was automatically something that was just like safer for me. So even though I wasn't at a queer table, I was at a table that made my queerness feel safe to like explore. And I think that will only get better, like being at queer tables, being at all women tables, and things like that. But as far as actual plays go, one of my favorite actual plays right now is Tales Yet Told, and it's part of like the Be Gay Roll Dice thing. So like it is like queer and people of color, and like it's just like a bunch of like diversity at the table, and watching them and like hearing the like emotion that comes out of them while they're like playing and performing is so different from what I'm used to from like my straight white dudes who like don't seem to get as emotionally involved.
For sure.
And I mean,
Yeah,
maybe that goes back to like a toxic masculinity thing. Like they're not allowed to show their emotion, so they don't want to explore that in like a role play thing. Like maybe that is like why that is. It makes a lot of sense that that would be it. I can't say for sure
maybe.
that's what it is, but
I think that's why I have fun when I get to have my chance to DM. And what's funny is that because it's Humblewood with animals, I think that kind of lets them feel a little bit differently because they're like, oh, I'm not playing a humanoid, I'm playing a cute little animal.
like separates
So
it for them.
yeah, so it kind of separates it for them a little bit. And so while I'm DMing, I give them this, and I always tell them that in this group, like, if there's any issues, please talk to me. I always have to remind them. But like I had one character where he wanted that like kind of what's the word, blanking, but like a really dynamic relationship with a girl that he had to leave behind. And I have another one where they're still figuring out the relationship, like they had to separate from their family and they wanted to explore what that meant. Well, another one's like, hey, I have a giant family I want to protect, how does that work? So it's been very much pulling that in. And I found with my own DMing with this group, um, I I am the one that kind of pulls all those in and makes it a little more organic and allows them to feel vulnerable within those relationships. Well, when I'm playing under those same guys with them as DMs, the relationships are still kind of there. But it doesn't get to that point of where we're going to get into the nitty gritty of it. I'm going to let you cry about it, and then we're going to come back and smash some heads in if you want to. It's just like, hey, here's your, person, your family member, they got kidnapped. Let's go save them. You're like, yay, we saved you. Or, oh no, it didn't happen, but we did it. It's end of session. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
kind
get
of makes
that.
me think like with my like streamed campaign with like 3 guys as my players, if it would be different if I was one of those players and one of them was DMing. Because they're all DMs. That could totally happen. We could totally do a one shot like that. And I'm kind of curious if the dynamic would change or not.
Mhm.
And also like if it would have been different if we started out versus now, the way that they have played with each other. And like we did 5 sessions with no combat, so like we have been super like role play heavy, super like characters invested in each other and themselves. And like I just wonder, like, would it have been different if somebody else was DMing, or is it like because I'm here, is it because we talked about it like beforehand and all of us were like, yeah, like we really want to try role playing, we want to get better at role playing, like stuff like that. Like I'm curious like how that would have been different too.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my closest friends that I play with, like we've both DM'd for each other, and he is a very loud bisexual British man, and I adore him to bits. But he always loves throwing in like all of the drama, all of the emotional connections, really crazy combat too. But he doesn't shy away from the role play aspect of the game, and so I always really love playing with him because of that. That's all I had to say. Gemini.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, and for actual plays, I admit I've only watched Critical Role. I know,
I'm
I'm
the same
sorry.
position.
I have another one. Okay, well then I'm gonna give you guys some to like go check out
Yes,
either
yes,
now or later.
drop-
'Cause I have at
drop
least
it.
2 that will definitely like fulfill that like queer and role play aspect, and they're 2 very different
Okay.
ones. So I will get you
Excellent.
those.
Yeah, I literally just watched. I just caught up with well, now I'm behind on EXU, but I literally just caught up on every single episode a month ago. I'm fully caught up except for EXU.
Calamity will wreck
So-
you. And
Oh, I
there
know.
is gay love happening, and you're just like, oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, I know. But one of the things with actual plays that really has gotten me into exploring characters' sexualities and genders and things like that in any role-playing game that I play is Taliesin Jaffe.
Yeah, Taliesin. It's great.
I adore him. And that's going back to what we were talking about before, saying that you can separate yourself from your characters. Like, he is obviously not all of these sexualities and all of these gender identities that he has played over the years. But he knows that he has this platform to be like, no, we need to have more diversity. We need these characters' stories being told. And so since he's there at the table, I mean, I'm wearing Caduceus's shirt here. Like, I adore that.
Yeah, and I find he's very sensitive about it too. Like, when it came to Caduceus and him being asexual, some people think, asexual is very much a spectrum. You can land from being, sexual, like sex aversion to, yeah, I'm asexual, I'm not attracted by sex, but I'll still participate in it. And he approached that. It was very like just a very, I wouldn't say offhanded, but it was just a casual, yeah, I'm not into it. And then everyone accepted and moved on, which I think that's part of how to have it at a table. If you're bringing in sexuality and gender identity, is it's there, it exists. No, don't make it a huge like display. It's basically, don't make it a display. We're not parading around, except for pride parades because it's a parade. But it's just how it is. If you get asked, you're like, yeah, I'm this, and you're like, okay, cool.
Exactly. Hang on, I think I have a visitor. You guys keep talking, and I'm gonna
a visitor.
A pug, maybe?
Did we get a pug sighting on stream? I love a pug sighting on stream. And I get to tell my brother I streamed with a pug because he loves pugs. There we go.
There he is.
There's Rocket.
Hi.
She literally licked my entire neck and chin for a solid 2 minutes when I got home today.
Well, yeah. She's missing her parent.
Yep. And so she is the inspiration for the Grand Pug Adventure. She is the world-weary pug personality. There are 6 personalities that you can play. She's the world-weary one because she's 12 years old. Yep. She's just like, what's happening? I don't understand. Okay. You can go back down. There you go, baby. Derailing the stream. Yeah.
That's okay. It's for cute animals. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, where were we? Next question?
Yeah,
sure.
I think so.
So I think it starts at games.
Yeah. So I already talked about this a little bit, but what games or modules even that you've played that have explicitly LGBTQIA plus themes? So the examples I wrote down were Glitter Hearts and Thirsty Sword Lesbians, etc. So
0, except my homebrew games. My homebrew games obviously have queerness in them, but I haven't like I've only played homebrew games really, and like D&D. So I've only played D&D up until this point. I'm broadening my horizons slowly. I've played like a couple solo RPGs, but they don't. Neither of them have had like any like explicit queerness in them. So I'm here to listen and take all of the ideas and play them for myself.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think the only game that I played that may have it explicitly is Alice is Missing. So in case anyone wants to play it, this will be a spoiler, maybe a little bit, but in Alice is Missing, you find out that Alice actually has a girlfriend secretly. And that can be part of like how the players approach it. And it's a very emotional charged game. I highly recommend it, but very emotional charged game. Especially when, depending on what your personality pools are, there's a character, one player could be very aggressive in how they approach conspiracy theories and blaming everybody. But I think that's the only game where it was more centered on having at least layers of LGBTQIA Otherwise, outside of that, haven't really played adventures that have it in any explicit form. In Humblewood, they do have a written segment about these two bird folks that are male presenting, that are very much partners, and you end up helping one of them or saving one of them to bring them back to their partner, and they help aid you in return. I think that's the most in like what is written in by other people outside of myself. Otherwise, it's mostly been me bringing it in.
Yeah, I have the module on my old laptop, not on my new one, but I say new, it's a year old. There was this one module that I pulled into my home game probably 2 years ago now that had a werewolf theme to it. And I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but it is the best module that I have ever played ever. And it has several several queer characters explicitly written into it, and it's just however the DM plays it out. Like there's this one gay couple that has like 7 kids or something like that, and I adore them. And I made one of the characters, she didn't have anything specific written about her, and so I made her have a connection to the ogress barkeep, because they sounded adorable together.
Yeah.
The way I ended up playing them as the DM. So, but yeah, like there were a couple in that one. And then with Glitter Hearts, what I really love about it is, so it's basically like magical girl anime kind of thing. You have the transformations and everything like that. And so with your school day-to-day life character, you have one description. You can list their pronouns, like all of that. And then when they transform, they can have completely different looks, completely different pronouns, everything. So for when I played, I forget her last name, but my character was named Esther because I'm Jewish, so I'm going to play a Jewish character. And she was like the photographer for the photojournalism club or something like that. And then when she transformed, she became Perpetua, which is a filter on Instagram. And they were they, them pronouns, and much shorter than Esther is. And I just really loved playing that dynamic. And Greg, I forget his last name, the writer of Glitter Hearts, is absolutely amazing. He will look through the Glitter Hearts tag on Twitter and talk to people and like what they say about Glitter Hearts. And he's just a wonderful human being. And I really, really enjoyed having that aspect built into the game. And then Thirsty Sword Lesbians, I personally have not played, but the title alone,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I've definitely heard of that one.
Yeah.
I don't know anything beyond the title, but it's kind of obvious.
Yes. Yeah, I got it in one of the bundles that I donated to. So I'm definitely going to be playing it at some point in the future. I'm really looking forward to it. Oh, bye, Spoonie.
Bye.
But yeah, those are the 3 that I can think of that have things built into them that I've done or heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have any tips for adding LGBTQIA plus diversity to your games?
I think the greatest tip has already been said, is like it doesn't need to be this like big like slap in the face. Like it can like especially like I was thinking about this, like especially with gender identity, it can be as simple as while you're describing them using their pronouns. Like that can immediately like add some diversity to it. Like just make sure that you use like you describe some like femme-looking people with like he, him pronouns. Like that's a thing that you can do, and that immediately adds some really subtle diversity. And then just like it's like as the DM, like it's really easy to throw in like a gay couple or like whatever it happens to be. Like it's really easy to do that, but I think you need to avoid that slap in the face. Like, you don't need to be constantly saying the gay couple does this and
Yeah.
like, oh, the two boys, they're
Yeah.
kissing and they're holding hands and they're doing this, and like, it doesn't have to be so explicit. The same way that you can add in like disabilities really easily, like, oh, this person walks with a cane, and you never have to mention it again. It's just, it's in there, it's added the diversity, so that it's not all the same NPC over and over again, because
Yeah.
that gets boring too, right?
Yes. And one thing that I've done, I love like doing Kickstarters and things, like getting like the newest fun things that people have come up with. And there's one that is actually for queer NPCs specifically, and they're still ongoing. They just hit their goal. Where is it? There we go. 25 queer NPCs. It's on Kickstarter. I have it on my Twitter account. But like, they have just a diverse cast of possible NPCs that you could really like delve deep into them if they become a party favorite.
Yeah. Nice.
But it looks really cool, so I'm excited to get that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
Because I know
it's
that
just
sometimes people have a hard time coming up with characters. So like, I always try to give those options of like, there are character generators out there that you can use if you need help with describing characters as well, and things like that.
Yeah, there is definitely tools you can pull from, and just to kind of repeat and echo in terms of like, you don't have to slap in the face. Also in terms of like titles, because you have kings and queens, or maybe Mr., Mrs., stuff like that. If a character introduces himself, you describe him as very femme in presentation, but maybe they go, "Hi, I am Mr. Quaxoddle." That can be just enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like away from the table, just making sure that you are like learning terms and things like that. Like, I'm a part of the community and I'm still learning terms every day for things that I didn't know about. Like, I learned about like qua romantic really recently, and I was like, oh, that's such a cool word. I didn't know about that one.
Wait, I don't know that one. What is it?
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
Exactly. So, yeah, so I like, obviously, like, I just learned it, so like it's not great, but quoi is like what in French. So it's like what
Mhm.
romantic. It's and basically it's people who have a hard time figuring out what kind of attraction they're having. Like, is this platonic? Is this romantic? What? And I was
Yeah.
like, that's
I
super cool
love
to have
that.
a term for that.
Yeah.
I
So just like
really like
continuing to
that.
educate yourself on stuff like that, so that you can keep like adding more and more diversity to your world. And as a player, like adding more and more diversity to the like characters that you play as well, or the NPCs that you ask your DM to add in. Like, maybe you have like a queer sister or something like that, and like you're giving those NPCs like, so that again, like even the players are trying to like add in that diversity as well.
Yeah, one of my players on my really long campaign that I ran, she had she had like 3 pages of backstory for her character, almost 3 times more than anyone else did. And she had lesbian mothers, and the sperm donor, he's a friend of their families, so they still have a really good relationship with him, but he's not her character's dad. And her best friend from military, because she has an army background, soldier background, is non-binary, and like she built all of that in from the beginning, and I loved her for that. It was so great.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We already answered the last question, exploring new identities through roleplay. I think that we did that pretty well. Is there anything else that y'all can think of that we didn't touch on?
I don't know. We kind of like offshoot a little bit across all questions, and they seem to overlap a lot.
There's a lot of overlap. I was like, oh, I kind of already
Yeah.
answered this question, but I'll like try to
Yeah.
elaborate a bit. I think the thing that I want people to kind of pull away from this is that even if you're not a queer person, you should be adding queer diversity to your world and stuff like that, and like it's okay to like explore different identities even if you're not queer, or if you are queer, explore different queer identities, or I don't know, maybe try a non-queer character. That might be something interesting to try
Yeah.
too. I don't know if I'd want to do that, you know, but but yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest thing is like diversity like within your world as well as at your table. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's what like the main like pull away, and like if you have questions, like ask them. Like we're all like really nice people, and like some of us don't want to like answer questions all the time because like emotional labor and stuff. But like as far as I go, like you can ask me all the questions you want because I like answering questions. So if there are people who are watching who are like looking for stuff like that, like pop by my stream or my Twitter or whatever, and like you can do that.
Yeah, Ada
But yeah,
asked
I
a
think that's it.
question.
I just like more diversity, you know?
So Ada asked a question. What are good ways to highlight the two potential players that your table is a safe space for queer/queer exploration?
Safety tools for sure. Always have safety tools. We kind of touched on it earlier as well about how some of us started without them and then went to tables where they had that and made it definitely feel safer.
Mhm.
Because then especially for anyone who may still be in the closet about who they are or may not be an egg that has cracked, they want to know like if they're going to explore this, they're not going to be outed in that way.
That's a
So if
really
you're
good point.
Yeah, so if you're able to provide those tools and make it clear, like if I'm entering something that maybe you don't want to do right now as a player,
Mhm.
throw up the X card or whatever methods
Mhm.
work for your table.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really important is having space after you finish playing for the day to, like, if anything potentially emotional came up, to sit down either as a group or individually and talk about what happened. Like, if you noticed that someone was reacting a little bit differently than you were expecting, that kind of thing, it is a good spot for a discussion to be had. Otherwise, you don't know what happened. And it's always important to know if something is triggering to someone and how to rectify
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think that's like the best thing, and I think that like opens it up to be safe for like everyone, is just like being like, we use safety tools here. If you don't like it, like you're not invited kind of thing. Also just like I think being open about like what's happening at your table, like if you like when it comes to like setting up like game expectations, like if you plan on having like queer lines go through it, like be like, hey, like we're gonna have some gay stuff happening, just so you guys are aware, but also remember that we have safety tools. If anything starts touching on stuff that you don't want to talk about, we can also move away from it. And I don't know about like home games and stuff because I don't know how people find people to play those, but when it comes to like stream games and stuff, I think it's really important to do like what we've done here with like having our pronouns after our name. I think that immediately turns it into something that is a safer space than if they're not there. And this has been proven to me by like putting my campaign up on YouTube. One of the first comments I ever got was, "Why do you have pronouns on there? That's disgusting." And I'm like, to keep people away, like to keep people like you from watching my stuff. We don't want you here.
Mhm.
Like that's exactly why. It's an immediate like green flag if you're like showing that off immediately.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have those, I'm
Absolutely.
immediately like, why don't you have that? How am I supposed to know how to refer to you guys? Like I can't just
Mhm.
assume that. That's not okay. And like asking like, okay, the 8 people who are here, can you please tell me all of your pronouns? Like that's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's better to just have it visible and you
Yeah.
don't have to say, except for
Yeah.
in our introductions, of course. But
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think just being like along with safety tools, just being like obvious about the fact that either you're queer or like you're okay with it. Like whether that's like on your socials or like whatever it happens to be. Like even if you are looking for like home games and stuff, if you happen to be like on like a looking for group site or something like that, just being like, hey, like I'm chickadee she they da 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 da, looking for like this kind of group or whatever, like it immediately like gives off that green flag.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've never tried one of those looking for. Usually I end up with like the same core, like 6 or 7 people rotating out of games. And I mean, those are all home games, but I'm going to be starting not only streaming my cosplay stuff, but my lovely loud British friend I was talking about is he's currently writing a game that we're going to stream, and we're going to start looking for players soon. So
Nice.
Yeah, this was the first time I played with like random people, and what made me feel safe being like, yeah, I'll play with these people was knowing that it was like a bunch of women and being able to look at the like Twitter site and be like, oh, this is like a safe place to go to play. So like when I'm filling out like those forms come across your feed all the time, like we're looking for players, like the first thing I do is like, okay, let's go check out like what they're doing. Is this something that like I feel safe going into? Like the reason that I have like 3 dudes as my players is because I feel very safe with those 3 dudes. Like it's not because I wasn't looking for diversity. It's because like I was like, I need to feel safe DMing my first thing on stream. So like I'm gonna pick like my best buddies. They just happen to be dudes.
Yep, because you already have that jive and that connection with them, so you don't have to like feel things out on stream. You're already
Which is a
there.
really weird thing to have to do. Like I'm so glad that like we got to do the like for like both of the things that I was a part of, you know, we talked in the Discord, we had our tech checks, we had our half hour before to kind of like get to know people, like get warmed up to talking to people that I don't know, because like I get like social anxiety about that. So like the more safe things out there, the easier it is to like jump into a group you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's all the questions that we have for this panel, so I think we'll wrap that up here. Any last words of wisdom or shout outs about your social media, things that you're working on?
Yeah, well, I will say up here somewhere is my handle on Twitter, where I chat the most on all the things I do and post about when I'm streaming and stuff. I forgot to mention at the top of it that I am a variety streamer. I do a solo play of Ironsworn. I play video games. I do art. I'm supposed to do art after this, actually. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I think just any outgoing thoughts is, you know, you can find your community out there. I know it can be pretty scary in a digital space. I know for myself why it took me so long to even start it was, how do I find people I can trust in gaming? And just when you start following people and seeing like the connections and seeing how they support other people, I think is one of the big flags too, is how they support others. Yeah.
I guess I'll do my like basically introduction but outroduction. You can find me here streaming. I'm next live tomorrow at 3 p.m. EST. I might go live a little early because I have the day off because it's Canada Day tomorrow. So I'm actually going to be doing like a Canada brainstorming D&D thing tomorrow, which is kind of fun. And then I'm most active on Twitter. You can find that up here somewhere. And then Discord communities, I try to be in there. I'm a lurker in there, but like if I see something I'm interested in, I'm gonna like hop into the conversation. So that's always a good place to chat with me as well. And again, like I run a campaign once a month and then brainstorming and stuff like that as far as D&D and TTRPG content goes. Some solo TTRPGs, so if you're interested in checking those out, I've been trying to play those on stream, which is a lot of fun.
Nice.
And then soon, I don't know when, but I will be playing The Great Pug Adventure on stream. I'm just working at getting together a group from my stream team, The Pug Club. So
nice.
I am so excited. Please tell me when you do this because I want to watch.
Absolutely. I'm working on getting the group together, and we're excited.
Great.
I'm so stoked.
Yeah.
So Yes, you can find me on Twitter, LalianPhoto. I am actually going to start streaming cosplay making because I am largely a cosplayer. I'm going to be starting the week after TwitchCon Amsterdam, and I'll be working on my Vex jacket from Critical Role Campaign 1. I am doing my own interpretation because I am me, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And is there anything else that I'm doing? Not on stream, but I'm really looking forward to that. And then hopefully eventually we'll get our 12-week campaign sorted out and do a little casting call. So yeah,
Nice.
that's everything. Well,
Beautiful.
have a wonderful last day of Pride Month. We love you all so much. Have a wonderful evening. I am going to go to sleep.
Yeah, go sleep for like too many
Yes.
hours.
All the sleep.
Have a good evening, everyone, or day, or whatever.
Yeah. Wherever it is in your time zone.
Hi, happy time
Bye.
zones.